Men, what was your worst date? Mine was a girl that I took to a seafood dinner, decided to get it to go order for her cousin and son, then add the cost to my bill. Her to go order for them was shrimp and lobster. When I got the bill, I paid for my dinner plus tip and left her the bill to pay the rest. Never talking to her again. Quick and easy reply. 18 yo, meh. 21 years ago, goes on a date to pub with crush from school, UK. Hour into date, she asks to borrow Winnie. Edit, which I did give her. 15 minutes later, she's leaving with another guy. Wow, that hurts. This one girl kept giving me strikes. I'd say her do something and she'd go strike one. Strike two, like that. So I said, well, hang on, how many strikes do I get? She goes 3 like in baseball. I go, how many do I have now? You're up to 2, so be careful. Okay. And I got up and walked away. I had a girl do the same thing to me back in high school with pretty much the same ending. It's 30 years later, and now I'm wondering if some poor bastard married her and is still putting up with that strike bullshit. More likely, she eventually learned not to treat people that badly. At least, I really hope so. I definitely went ice skating with my crush, and I fell and broke both my tibia and my fibula and had to have emergency surgery. Worst date to have with a crush you have liked for about 3 years. Showed up to a date. First question she asks, oh, how did you get here? Me, I rode my bike. I hate cyclists. Whenever I see them, I want to run them over in my car. 2 minutes later, so where are you from? Me, I grew up in Canada. I've been to Montreal. Me, oh, cool, me too. I really like it. What did you think? I hated it. I thought it was dirty, and the French people are really rude. 2 minutes later, talking about work. Me, I was in consulting. Me too. I hated it. I didn't like a single consultant I met. We left after 30 minutes and never talked to each other again. Would be a great skit law. It was at a coffee shop in a library. She showed up and the very first thing she did was remove her shoes and put them on the table. Later, she mentioned how she was obsessed with victims of serial killers and had them tattooed on her body. Jesus, you dodged a bullet? What a psycho. Who puts their shoes on the table? My ex-husband, as it turned out. Always live with someone before you get married. Halfway through dinner at Denny's. Her choice, not mine. On my birthday, she told me she liked the gay guy on the water polo team and left me with the bill. Edit. No, I didn't get a free Grand Slam. But the waitress saw what happened and she comped my meal for me when I left. Goddamn bro. At least it was a cheap meal. I think mine was a simple one. I wasn't exactly in the right place in life at that time, but I had this crush on a girl. The date came, and I believe it was a movie or a dinner. Anyways, she brought along a friend. Even though I was a naive kid at the time, even I could recognize that it was no longer a serious date, but a go-away date. Yeah, if memory serves me, there were no further dates. Pro tip to people, if you don't want to date someone, don't say yes. This. Asked a girl out for a date. Told her not to feel pressured and to just tell me no if she didn't want to go through with it. She said she was definitely down for the date, but it'd have to be in a couple weeks. I try to talk and have conversation going between then and the date, but she's giving me all the shitty one-word replies and just doesn't seem into it. This was my first sign that something wasn't quite right. I decided to stop trying to force dry-ass conversation and hit her up closer to the date. Fast forward, I ask her if she's decided where she'd like to go, and she tells me that it's not a good time anymore and calls off the date. I let her know I knew she was just nicely letting me off. I get it, and I'm certainly not naive or oblivious to what she is doing. Haven't talked to her since. Could have been worse, and at least she cut it off before the actual date and before there was too much investment, but I ended up having my hopes up for nothing, and it definitely goes without saying to just say no up front if you aren't with it. Saves us all time, energy, and we can move on with life a lot quicker. My date used 2-hour street parking when we went to see Interstellar. We had to leave about 20 minutes before the end of the movie to get to her car in time. I still haven't seen the end. Wow, this is brutal. 20 minutes before end of movie. We gotta go. Car parking is up. Don't make me leave Murph. Went on 3 dates. Nice dinner, met her mom and all that. During the 3rd date, she got a call in the middle of dinner. Finished the call and said, sorry, that's my boyfriend. This is the only time he gets to call from basic. And then she couldn't wrap her head around why I thought that was fucked up. Her reasoning was he was in another state so she can do whatever she wants. This could probably be a copy pasta for military members from the opposite perspective at this point. Zad man. An internet date and I were having a great conversation. I mentioned I was in the Army for 7 years. She thanked me for my service and said, every girl knows. If you want a smart guy, you date Navy or Air Force. If you want a really great looking guy who maybe isn't the sharpest needle in the sewing drawer, you date a Marine. Me. What about the Army? Jane. That's the one you're married to while you're sleeping with the other three. I asked a girl out on a date in college. When she showed up, she brought another guy with her. When I was in college, a girl I knew asked us, her gal friends, if we wanted to see a movie together. Once we arrived at the theater, we saw a very confused guy who was also a part of our larger friend group, standing next to her. After we got our tickets, she grabbed his hand and said they were sitting together, and I blurted out, "Are you guys on a date?" In my defense, I was and am an idiot. After the movie, we were all still confused and unsure how the rest of the night should play out. Someone suggested coffee, but the girl grabbed her date's hand, giggled, and said they were taking off. The next day, I heard she asked if she could see his dorm. When they got to his floor, on his way to his room, she marched into the common area and sat on one of the couches. He followed, sat down next to her, and she got up and sat in another couch opposite. She then proceeded to spend the next 3 hours asking him questions about his childhood and family before abruptly standing up and saying she had to go back to her room. She was tired. No, don't walk her back. The next morning, she called up one of her girlfriends and complained he didn't make any moves on her. Zero romantic vibes is how she described it. He called me up and said he spent the entire evening in a state of confusion. I am female, and I'm also confused about what exactly she wanted or expected to happen. This poor dude seems to be in a losing situation. I imagine him anticipating her showing up alone to their date. Then the surprise when she brought back up, then her opening up the opportunity for him to think he's going to get laid only to dart off to another room and play keep away until she does home. If I followed you correctly, it seems like she was wanting him to essentially rape her. How else is he supposed to be romantically engaged or whatever? If I sit beside you and you move away, what am I supposed to think? Even more so if 2 minutes ago you wanted to see my room. What changed? I mean, you're allowed to change your mind anytime, of course, but at least be open about it. My wife does this thing where I'll do or say something silly or dumb, and she will say, "I didn't want to have sex with you before, but now, after hearing that thunderous belch, I'm all hot and bothered." I know she's joking, but only after 10 years together, lol. It wasn't a date, but this person apparently thought it was. I volunteer at my local humane society, and there are a ton of volunteers there. I got a new volunteer who normally worked the cat area helping me out in adoptions. I realized right away that she had a condition, like maybe Asperger's or something, but she was a very sweet and nice person, so I was always very friendly and cordial to her. Before I knew it, she was always scheduled with me in adoptions. We sign ourselves up where there are openings. I could tell she liked me, but then she went and found me on Facebook. I have a very common name and am not easy to find in a big city. Then my next shift, she told me it was her birthday coming up and her parents were taking her to Captain Marvel, 3'd, and she could bring a friend. So I agreed to it. It was very awkward because when I got there, she signed us in on Facebook and put we were on a date. The rest of the night was awkward. I waited about a week to tell her that although I'd love to be her friend, I wasn't interested in anything more. I could tell she was hurt. I think this wins for most awkward. I'm cringing over here. The most awkward is she stared at me the majority of the movie. I could see her in the side of my purview just staring at me. Longest movie of my life, lol. More stories on the channel. RedStore.